Hank Green, a science communicator who spent nearly 20 years building a career explaining hard ideas carefully, admitted something uncomfortable in public. He said AI had made his research faster, and he had come to rely on it too much. He said it gave him fast access to papers he did not know existed, but this had been to the detriment of his work, because it reduced his freedom to find his own ways into and around the topic. He said the words and the takes were still his. He used it to locate papers, not to write. He was not accusing the machine of deception. He was describing a shift in his own process that he did not like. That is the real AI trap. The danger is not that the machine gives you a wrong answer. It is that it can give you a good answer so fast that you stop practicing the judgment required to know why it is good. I'm Marcus Vale, and this is the Mastery Files. This channel exists to help you become harder to distract, harder to break, and harder to fool. Faster answers, weaker thinking. That is the claim. Let's find out whether it survives contact with the evidence. By the end, you will have a method for using AI hard without handing over the judgment. Here's the deeper principle at play. Cognitive offloading is normal and ancient. We offload memory to writing, arithmetic to calculators, and navigation to GPS. That is not the problem. The problem is narrower and sharper. It is offloading a process that is itself the skill you wanted to keep. Consider the distinction that this whole argument turns on. Assisted performance is how well you do the task with the tool in hand. Independent capability is what remains when the tool is gone. These are not the same number. Most people have never checked whether they are moving in the same direction. Think of someone who has navigated to the same address 40 times using GPS and still cannot draw the route. The tool got them there every time, but the skill never transferred. They became dependent on something they did not notice was replacing their own sense of direction. Now apply that to AI. You ask a question, and the answer appears in 4 seconds, well written and citing sources. It sounds right, so you take it and move on. The task is done. But the mental process of arriving at that answer yourself, of forming the question, of weighing the evidence, of making the judgment, of deciding what to trust and what to doubt, that process did not happen. It was replaced by a transaction. The goal is not less AI. It is the move from cognitive offloading to cognitive augmentation, using the tool to strengthen your thinking, not to replace it. The old texts called this something else. Epictetus, nearly 2,000 years ago, built his practice around a single distinction. He said events are one thing. The labels we attach to them are another. In the discourses, he strips events down to bare facts. His son is dead. His ship is lost. He was carried to prison. Those are facts. Then he observes that he has fared ill is an addition that each man makes on his own responsibility. The event is one thing, the verdict is another. And the verdict belongs to you. Now apply that to the screen in front of you. The answer appeared in 4 seconds. That is the fact. Believing you understand it now is the addition. Believing it is making you stupid is also an addition. The machine supplies the impression. The verdict is yours, and it is yours on your responsibility. We are borrowing an old discipline for a new problem. The screen in front of you is not so different from the impressions that arrived in a Roman mind 2,000 years ago. The speed is new. The choice is not. Epictetus had a practice for this. In the discourses, he tells the impression to wait. He asks to be allowed to examine it and put it to the test before granting his assent. That word, assent, is the hinge. The Stoics called it the gap between impression and verdict. An impression appears, but you do not have to accept it. You can pause, inspect, and decide. AI gives an impression. You give the assent. This is not philosophy for philosophy's sake. It is operation. Researchers at MIT tracked 67 people over 4 weeks. Each person judged whether a news headline and image were real or fake, first on their own, then through discussion with a chatbot, and then they made their final decision. Thousands of AI conversations and thousands of judgments accumulated over those 4 weeks. This was a small study that lasted 1 month, covered one task, and took place in one part of the world. It is not the last word on this topic, but the design was honest, and the results are worth your attention. Picture what it was like from the participant's side. You look at a headline, form a hunch, and think it might be false. Then you hear a confident machine explain why it thinks the headline is real. The machine sounds certain, informed, and like it knows. You feel the pull to agree because the explanation sounds solid, and you start to doubt your own hunch. Over 4 weeks, the participants faced thousands of these moments. Each time the machine offered certainty, and each time they had to choose whether to trust their own hunch or the confident voice on the screen. The first result was exactly what you would expect. With the AI, people got better at spotting fake news, and the improvement was noticeable. The tool worked exactly as designed, but the second result was not what you would expect, and it changes the whole conversation. With the AI, people were 21% more accurate at spotting fake news. The tool worked. By week 4, tested alone on new material, their accuracy had fallen 15 percentage points below where they started. These were the same people, in the same month, and both numbers are true. Roughly a quarter of them reported feeling that they were getting better, but the measurement said otherwise. The tool made them better at the task, but it did not make them better at the skill. That is the trade that has now been measured. You might be thinking that is a lab study about news headlines, and it does not apply to your work. Consider the evidence from a different field. In a study published in a medical journal, researchers looked at 19 doctors who had each performed over 2,000 colonoscopies. After AI detection tools were introduced at their centers, their detection rate without AI fell from 28.4% to 22.4%, a 6-point drop in experienced professionals on work where the miss is a cancer. This was an observational study, and the finding is associated with the introduction of AI tools, not proven to be caused by them. But it is a serious signal, and stating the uncertainty as part of the discipline this video is about. Experienced doctors, with thousands of successful procedures behind them, detected less when they worked without it. Now consider a study published this month in Nature Medicine. Researchers gave non-experts a diagnostic task with AI explanations. The non-experts trusted the AI's explanations whether they were right or wrong. They were more confident in their wrong answers when a language model explained the reasoning, and they found vague explanations more convincing than specific ones. Clinicians caught the AI's mistakes because a clinician already has a diagnosis in mind and checks the AI against their own training, so a bad explanation gets caught. A non-expert uses that same explanation to form the opinion in the first place. The difference was not intelligence, but whether they had a judgment of their own before the AI spoke. Offloading is how humans have always extended themselves. Writing offloaded memory, and Socrates objected. And he was wrong. Calculators offloaded arithmetic, and mathematics got further, not shorter. Losing an unassisted skill is not a loss if the assisted version is always available, and reliably better. Demanding people preserve capacities they will never need alone is nostalgia dressed as discipline. The benefits of AI are real. The 21% gain in the MIT study was real, and in the medical study, AI assistants improved non-experts' accuracy overall. A model built to correct for bias also reduced diagnostic disparities across skin tones, and that is a genuine good landing on people with the least access to expertise. The objection holds when the tool is guaranteed present and the skill is genuinely obsolete. Neither is true of judgment, because the tool is not always there. It is not always right, and the people most deferential to it were the ones who performed worst without it. Nobody's arithmetic error compounds into a worldview, but a verification failure does. Researchers who studied over-reliance across 5 experiments with over 700 people found it is not a fixed flaw in human cognition. It responds to effort. When verifying got cheaper or mattered more, people verified more, which means it is a purchase, not a fate. Most people simply make it without ever seeing the price. And in the MIT study itself, the AI conversations that built durable skill were the ones that asked questions instead of giving answers. They were slower in the moment, but stronger afterward. Progress came from the effort, and it always has. Before the method, something you're owed. This voice is generated. This channel uses AI to research, to draft, to build the face you are looking at. It also has a person who chooses the questions, does his own reading, and opens the sources. He cuts every frame and approves every line before it reaches you. The models check each other, and he checks the models. Nothing here ships unverified. That is not how most people use these tools, and it does not need to be. Ask, receive, move on. For most of what you ask, that is exactly the right amount of effort. This video is about the few questions where it is not. The Stoics called the act of accepting an impression ASSENT. That is what this method is named for. ASSENT. 6 steps, each one a way of opening the gap before you grant it. A. Attempt first. Before asking AI anything consequential, write a guess, an outline, a hypothesis, anything. Spend 60 seconds on a sentence, a bullet list, or a rough diagram. Anything that forces your brain to work before the machine starts working for you. In the medical study, showing people the AI's answer before they formed their own made them measurably more deferential. The researchers' proposed fix was to force a hypothesis first. So do that. S. Source check. Once you have asked, open the paper, the filing, or the document. An AI-generated citation is not verified until you have opened it. The model can give you a study with a title, a journal, and a year, and all 3 can be correct while the finding is still misstated. If the AI gives you a paper title, open the paper. If it gives you a filing number, pull the filing. Verification is not paranoia. It is the discipline. S. Stress test. Ask what evidence would make the conclusion wrong, what assumptions you are making, and what an informed critic would say. Challenge the answer before you accept it. Ask the AI to argue against itself. The best prompts are the ones that make the tool uncomfortable. E. Explain without AI. Close the window and explain it out loud in your own words. If you cannot explain it without the tool, you have the answer without the understanding. N. Name the uncertainty. State what you still do not know, what is disputed, and what rests on assumption. In the medical study, vague explanations were found more convincing than precise ones. So remember that confidence is not accuracy, in the machine or in you. T. Take responsibility. The tool assists, but the claim, the decision, and the judgment are yours. The verdict is an addition each person makes on their own responsibility. AI gives an impression. You give the assent. Consider two people with the same question, the same AI, and the same answer. One copies the conclusion and moves on. The other checks the source, asks for the strongest objection, closes the window, explains it in their own words, and decides. Today, their output looks identical, and nobody watching could tell them apart. In 6 months, they are not the same person, and the difference will show up on the day the tool is wrong, or gone, or unavailable, and only one of them notices. The person who copied the answer will not remember why it was right. The person who checked it will remember why it could have been wrong. That memory is the skill. All 6 steps matter, but start with one. On the next question that matters, write your own answer before you ask. 60 seconds is all it takes. 6 instructions get admired, but 1 gets done. Step A is the one with peer-reviewed backing. The cost is real, and it is measurable. What you owe it is your call, on this question, on this day, with this much at stake. Some answers you can take on trust, but others you cannot afford to. The trap was never the machine. It was the moment you stopped noticing that a verdict was being made, and stopped noticing that it was being made by something other than you. If this video added something to your thinking, like it so others can find it, subscribe to the Mastery Files if you are building a mind that does not break under weight. In the comments, tell me the last thing you accepted from an AI without checking it. Also, tell me what topic to examine next. The next video is the real reason everyone is going offline. AI gives an impression. You give the assent. I'm Marcus Vale, and until next time, stay disciplined.